We're live at the Neshoba County Fair, Mississippi's giant house party. We welcome now Byron Carter, candidate for Mississippi Supreme Court Justice. Byron, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I listen to you almost every day.
Oh, awesome. Appreciate that. So tell our audience what persuaded you to jump in this race and seek this seat on the Mississippi Supreme Court.
Probably be several different factors. One is I was an Eagle Scout, and one of the things I learned was that when you leave a place, it should be better when you left than it was when you got there. And then I also clerked for the Supreme Court, and when I left, I said I'd be back. And as far as making things better, I would like to be on the court to make it better than it is, so that when I leave, it is a better place.
I got you. So what about your experience and background and qualifications for this position?
Okay. I clerked for the Supreme Court for a year for Justice Armis Hawkins, who is a presiding justice, which means he's one of the top three. Also did some work for the chief judge and some other justices as well. When I was there, I didn't clerk for them, but they asked me to do tasks for them, which I did. I mainly wrote memorandums, wrote opinions, and then the judge I worked for actually had a close call in a couple of cases and asked me to go to walk around and talk to the other judges just as about the case and try to sway them to our side, which I was telling one candidate here, his father was on the court back then, and I actually swayed him to our side.
Interesting.
So I thought that was fun, and I learned a lot while I was there.
So explain to the audience, I think it's important to understand the district structure here in the state of Mississippi and how that dovetails into the makeup of our Supreme Court.
Well, we have had the same districts for years. Matter of fact, back when I was there, they were talked about changing the districts and making each judge have their own district, which for Judge Hawkins, it was going to start in Iuka and come all the way down to Jackson as a big wedge. And lines that weren't just straight but weaved all over the place. Where we are now, it's 22 counties, basically Lauderdale to Warren to Bolivar. In the
central district, didn't mean to interrupt you, but we have a northern, a central, and a southern, three total districts.
Correct.
Yeah.
Three judges from each.
Yep.
The structure, as far as the makeup, again, we have three judges from each district. It's 22 counties in the central district, which is kind of spread out to be when you start looking at Cleveland all the way down to Port Gibson. There's talk of that being changed sometime near. I don't know if that's going to happen.
In general, Byron, we're talking to Byron Carter. He is a candidate for Mississippi Supreme Court for the Central District. Talk about how you would differentiate yourself with the other candidates.
Experience. That's totally about experience. I've besides clerking for the Supreme Court, I have worked for my first job out of that was working for a law firm that whenever they lost a case or that they won and the other side appealed, they would call the attorney I worked for to handle the appeal, and I wrote those briefs. So I wrote a lot of briefs that don't have my name on them, but I wrote those briefs and then did many for that firm. I left that firm and I've continued handling appeals. In fact, yesterday I was working on one in the 11th Circuit in federal court in Atlanta, Georgia. So I've handled more appeals for both appellants and appellees than any other candidate in this race, both in Mississippi and in Alabama. I've been before both Supreme Courts, the Court of Appeals in Mississippi, the Court of Civil Appeals in Alabama.
We hear a lot of times with respect to Supreme Court justices at all levels, at state level, at the federal level, just this idea of judicial philosophy, I guess. And are you a person would you consider yourself to be a person who's really strict with respect to the text of statute, the text of our Constitution, or is there some leeway there where you can kind of interpret it based on intent?
No, I think we follow what the law is, and you don't try to change the law. I was just thinking when you were speaking that people listen to you on the radio and they listen to your philosophy.
Yeah.
You probably know my philosophy.
Okay, gotcha.
And there's one point that really makes me think of that. You always talk about, or you mention many times, how the president has appointed people to different positions, not based on their qualifications, but because of who they are, whether they're
this president, absolutely.
Right. And you've always stressed that he doesn't pay anything at all about the experience. Well, that's where I come in. I have the experience.
Okay.
And so he probably wouldn't appoint me for anything.
You don't check all the boxes.
No.
Yeah, I get it. So just today, I believe, you issued a press release where you're calling for a limitation on the appointment of judges in our state, Supreme Court judges, based on their age.
Right.
Tell us about that.
And the reason why we started looking into that is because 32 states have statutes or in the Constitution which limit the age of judges when they first run or are appointed. In Alabama, Louisiana, and Arkansas, it's the age of 70. I think that may be a little low, but that's what they are. That's strictly enforced. And so it would be a statewide prohibition that you could not run if you were over the age of 70.
Okay.
And I hate saying it because I'm getting close to that myself. Not far from that, but
yep.
But we all know that as you age, the brain deteriorates, and we've shown that by President Biden by dropping out of this race. I mean, it was clear that he suffered from some mental frailties, and so judges should not suffer from those frailties. And it's admirable to want to seek office. It's admirable to be in a position, but at some point you got to retire and go home.
Obviously, a lot of buzz in the press over the last week with President Biden's three-pronged proposal to reform the U.S. Supreme Court. One of those would institute term limits, 18 years. Do you think that we should be doing something like that at the state level?
Well, we do have term limits at the state level because you run for an 8-year term.
Okay, so, that's right. So you're right. You're not in for life.
No,
Thank you. Yeah.
As far as the United States Supreme Court, we do have a lot of old jurors that are still there. As far as an 18-year term, I don't know where they came up with that. The biggest factor that I'm very much opposed to is increasing the number of judges to 14. There's no reason to do that. We've survived for 250 years with 9. Why do we need to change that now? And the only reason to change is because they're ruling against the powers that be now. They're ruling against them, so they want to change things.
Yeah, and I mean, also you got the issue where that may help you in the short term when you've got some seats, I guess, to fill and appoint, but then the pendulum always swings in the other direction, and I don't know that you're accomplishing anything by that on a long-term basis. Okay, so what about the campaign? How's that going?
I was just telling Governor Reeves, I said some people may really enjoy this, and I guess in some ways I do enjoy it, but in a lot of ways it's stressful.
Yeah.
You look at faces and you don't know if they're listening to you. I walk around here and everybody's wearing a sticker for another candidate. I walk up to them anyway and I try to convince them that they need to change their vote. I guess really and truly, I guess I do like it.
Yeah.
But it is stressful.
Yeah.
And in speaking, I got faster and faster and faster because I'm more nervous. And
I heard your speech. That was good delivery.
The only thing I think that everybody hit on was the fact that I said I wish I'd gone to medical school like my sisters.
Now you find yourself in the judicial world. Interesting.
And I love the practice of law. I had a judge and another attorney in a case tell me not long ago that maybe I'm not cut out for this or for the practice of trial law just because I don't have the demeanor of yelling and screaming at the other side. And I tell people that may impress your client to do that, but it doesn't impress the judge who you're going to be back in front of next week.
True. So what's your practice areas in law?
It's gotten to now where it's a little of everything. I work for, as I said, a large firm drafting briefs, and I went to another large firm where we did insurance defense primarily.
Okay.
Then I delved into some other areas, then came back to Mississippi, and it was all workers' compensation.
Okay.
And then I moved from that, doing some more insurance defense still, but then I also do a lot of domestic work.
Okay.
I do a lot of child custody.
That's pretty wide range for an attorney. You normally don't see that.
And I take things I probably shouldn't take when somebody comes in and said, hey, I've got this problem, and I feel sorry for them. And so I start researching some new area of the law to get into that. And,
so do you feel like, Byron, that's a good foundation for a Supreme Court justice?
I do. I'm not solely in one area just fixed to property or fixed to divorce. I've got a broad range of seeing a little of everything. Just triggered my brain. My brain is weird sometimes. I remember clerking that Judge Hawkins had a case. He said, I know, he'd written his opinion and said, and had a phrase he wanted to say and said, I know there's a case that says this. So I was in the library all day one Saturday from like 7 in the morning until about 4:30 that day. I finally found a case and was able to give him that. And he came in on Monday and he saw that case and said, this is great. This is great. This is exactly what I was looking for. So it's fun. Doing the research is fun. I enjoy that. I enjoy I enjoy reading opinions, and I enjoy reading what other people, how they argue and present themselves. There's sometimes when I read something, I go, that's ridiculous. I guess I can say this. In the case that I have on the appeal to the 11th Circuit, when the other attorney filed their motion to dismiss my case, I said, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. And then the judge bought it. Dismissed my case. So now we're on appeal, which it'll be reversed.
I get it. Well, I'll just say that the potential exists for cases in any of those areas to appear before the Supreme Court, right?
Right.
Yes.
Primarily just because of the makeup when we added the Court of Appeals, that some of those go to the Court of Appeals.
I got you. Byron, appreciate you coming on. Good luck to you on the campaign. Byron Carter, candidate for the Central District for Mississippi's Supreme Court. We're going to step aside for a break. We're at the Neshoba County Fair. Up next is the Commissioner of Agriculture for the great state of Mississippi, Andy Gibson. Stay